Welcome to Focus. This segment is an opportunity for us to focus on what matters with people, places, and things. I'm your photographer, Darrell Everidge. Today I have the opportunity to sit down with both David Dickinson and Bill Owens. David Dickinson is the current District 8 Monroe City Councilman, and Bill Owens is running against David in the November election. I will ask the same questions of both gentlemen, and I'll start the interview with David Dickinson. Tell us a little bit about what you think you've accomplished and what you think you want to do looking forward.
Okay, well, I decided to run for city council 4 years ago in 2017, and the reason I did that is I felt like we had finally come through the Great Recession and things were starting to economically improve, and that Monroe was in a position where we could go either in a very good direction or maybe in a not so good direction. And I felt like that I had the skill set and the knowledge to help move us forward in a very good way. There were a couple things back then that folks had expressed to me that they felt like we really needed to get accomplished. The largest one was people were consistently saying, well, we need a good quality chain grocery store. Why don't we have a Publix? Why don't we have a Kroger? Why are our options so limited? And there were those in office who said, well, it just won't happen. We can't get that accomplished. We just don't have the demographics for it. I didn't feel that was correct, so I made a commitment to the voters that I would bring that chain grocery store. And I said, if I don't, vote me out in 4 years. I will see that store happens. Well, it's happened. It's up on the north side. It's the MAB development. Publix is the anchor store. It's a $150 million investment. And that's going to bring millions of dollars in sales tax back into the city of Monroe and Walton County that now bleeds out into other counties. A second thing I was real big on 4 years ago was the internet and cable system. We were using the coax cable system even for our internet service. It's not particularly fast, it's unreliable, weather affects it, squirrels chew into it. And so I really felt like we needed to move to a fiber optic backbone. That's what we're now doing. We did a bond referendum, well, not referendum, but bond issue, and we're spending about $13 million to provide a complete fiber optic network to all of our customers. That will dramatically increase the speed and the reliability so that you can stream pretty much anything, whether you're doing it for personal use and entertainment or if you're doing it for business, like if you're working from home, which a lot of people are doing now because of the pandemic. It's absolutely essential.
And what organizations are you involved in at the moment that you believe will currently benefit the residents of
Okay,
Monroe?
well, other than the city government and of course organizations affiliated with the bar because I'm a lawyer, the ones I'm most involved in, first and foremost, an organization called Hope Monroe, which is a nonprofit that was basically established. I was one of the people that set it up a few years ago as a housing initiative. And the focus of Hope Monroe was to address some of the issues that we have in Monroe with lower income folks not really having adequate, safe housing. It was basically based on the model of an organization in South Atlanta called CARIS, and in some ways is similar to Habitat for Humanity. So what has happened, we're a very small organization and doing the fundraising is difficult. So we were doing very limited things. We are now partnering with the Gwinnett Habitat for Humanity, which has absorbed the Walton chapter, which basically had become defunct. And so now we're going to start building habitat houses again in Monroe and Walton County. In fact, the first one the kickoff for it's going to be tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. So I do that. The other one I'm still very involved in is the Boys and Girls Club. We started that 20 years ago. I was on the founding board for it. I served as a board member for several years. My involvement with it now is doing the 5K road race every year. That race, we generally raise somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 for the club. We haven't been able to do it the last 2 years because of the pandemic, so the plan now is to start back with it in 2022. I'm very committed to that organization. It does wonderful things in this community, and I want to keep working with it for as long as I can. The third thing, I'm involved with my church, which is Grace Monroe. We just recently did the renovation on the old elementary school that's here directly behind my office building. We're all about restoring broken things, abandoned things like that set of buildings, and doing good work in the community with folks.
And going back to the very beginning of what made you want to become a part of the city council here in Monroe?
Well, just based on what I had done for years and years. I mean, I've lived in the city of Monroe for 40 years. I've been involved in politics and civic issues that entire time. I served as mayor 20 years ago, and I just felt like it was the time to get back into it. And we went through some really rough times in Monroe during the Great Recession, and a lot of the progress that had been made, not only did it stop, we kind of went backwards in some ways. And so once we came out of that, I just felt compelled to become involved with the city government again.
And what do you believe are the three biggest problems facing the city right now?
Well, I don't know that we have three major problems. I think what we have is we have one major problem that then has some sub-components. That major problem is how to deal with growth. We're a metro Atlanta County. We're starting again to experience very large numbers of folks moving east out of the more crowded counties, particularly Gwinnett County, which now has almost 1 million people in it. And with that growth, the subsets, I think, are these. Number one, you are going to have a traffic transportation problem. There's not a day goes by but what someone in the city tells me, gee, we got to do something about this traffic. I've got cut through traffic on my residential street. I've got people speeding. I've got all kinds of problems. We've got tractor trailers rolling through a residential area. That happened in my own neighborhood, which is Church Street. So we've got to get a handle on that. The one part of that is we've had this major problem with tractor trailer traffic on Broad Street, our main street, for decades. It gets worse every year. We finally, after negotiating with the state literally for decades, we're getting the bypass to get the trucks out of town. That's going to do wonderful things for our downtown. We've also, though, got to protect our residential areas and just bring some sanity to it before it gets totally out of hand. Another thing that's happening with the growth is the housing stock in Monroe. And folks do say to me all the time, well, we're building new housing because of price of materials and that kind of thing. The prices are really accelerating for both new homes and for older homes that are being resold. So what are we going to do to make sure that we have housing for folks all across the economic spectrum? A lot of that the city can't control. It's free market, and of course I very much believe in free enterprise and the free market. But for folks who qualify, that's where organizations like Hope Monroe and Habitat come into play. The City Council enacted a zoning regulation saying we can do what are called infill overlay districts. And the purpose of that is to develop areas in our interior footprint that either are undeveloped now or they have substandard housing on them that needs to come down and be replaced with adequate affordable housing. So the way it works is you acquire the footprint, which can be as small as an acre, and you can build smaller homes on small lots, and you could get somewhere between 6 and 10 houses on those. So I'm hoping that Habitat is going to be able to build some of those, and obviously the free market developers are going to build some of those. And because they're smaller houses and smaller lots, they are far more affordable.
And how do you plan to address these problems to solve the issues that you were talking about?
With the housing, well, I think I just laid that out. One of the other things that sometimes folks say to me is they say, well, with everything that's going on development-wise, isn't that going to create what's called a gentrification problem? And because property values are going up, isn't that going to put a burden, say, on older homeowners who are on fixed incomes who are in these rapidly developing areas? I have a solution for that. It's very simple. What we do is if we have what I call legacy homeowners, we freeze the tax valuation on that property for as long as that person or persons live in the house. And then when they move out or they die and the house is turned over to someone else, then it goes back to market value. That's something that is done. For example, in the city of Atlanta, they do it in neighborhoods where the housing prices have become astronomical, and it protects people who have put their life into their house in their neighborhood, and they do not get priced out.
And why do you believe you're the best candidate for this position?
I think based on my history, my experience, I not only have a law degree, which certainly helps in dealing with some of these issues, but I also have a master's degree in public administration from the University of Georgia. And so a lot of things that someone new coming into the job would have to learn, I have that knowledge base. And part of my campaign theme is it's the 3 C's is what I call it, which is character. You have to be a person of good fundamental character to be successful in this position. Number 2, you have to have the courage to do the right thing when it needs to be done. And that's not always easy. Sometimes you don't make everybody happy in this job. And finally, you have to have the competence to actually accomplish the mission. It's very easy for folks to say, well, if I was in that position, I would do A, B, and C. Saying you're going to do it and actually doing it are 2 fundamentally different things. So you got to have the competence to actually get the job done, and I do.
And if by chance you don't win re-election, do you still plan to be a part and involved in the community?
I've been a part of this city for 40 years. I'm not going anywhere. So if I did not get reelected to this position, I will continue doing the work that I do with various organizations and in my private businesses to move this community forward.
Well, David, that's all the questions I have. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm really trying to keep this campaign positive. I am disappointed, or was disappointed when we did the chamber forum the other night that Mr. Owens didn't show up for that. But he has shown up for this interview that you're doing, which I think that's good. I am compelled to say that I think Mr. Owens is sort of a protest candidate. I mean, he is suing the city in this federal lawsuit. He's suing the police chief personally. He's suing the city administrator personally. In that environment, I don't know if he got elected, I don't know how you work with those people and how you work with the other folks in the city government. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that's a little wrong-headed, and I think that's another reason I'm the better candidate.
Next, I sit down with Bill Owens, and we start the conversation about, is this his first attempt at politics?
This would be my first time. I've worked in and around government most of my life, and this is the first time I've actually stepped off into the political arena.
And what organizations are you involved currently in at the moment that you believe will benefit the residents of Monroe?
Several. I'm a member of the Monroe Rotary Club. I am a member of the Monroe Lions Club. I am a member of Project Renewal, which is the domestic violence shelter that covers not just Monroe, but Walton, Newton, and Rockdale counties. I am a member of Hometown Heroes of Walton, and it's the organization that raises funds to do Shop with a Hero program and things like that. So like last year we did, served over 191 kids at Christmas time during the COVID pandemic, making sure that they had a Christmas.
And what made you decide to run for city council?
It's something that I've always planned on doing once I got out of government, was to, go into politics. But specifically when I look at, what's been going on here in the Monroe in the last 4 years, there's been several things that's drawn my attention and said, someone should run and do something a little bit different. Some of those things, Conestoga Mobile Home Park, when the religious leaders came before the council and said, we understand these things have to happen. We just need another 30 days to relocate all these families. And the city council, their response was to turn the water off, turn the power off, and tell the people if you're at home when the sun goes down, you're going to go to jail. That's not what I want for my community. And there's more things. The traffic calming things that were added on Church Street. There was a big uproar with the citizens on that. And it was just completely ignored by the council. Just a few months ago, they were talking about more traffic calming issues or traffic calming measures that were going to be put in place. And when the citizens showed up, the administration basically said, we're not here for you to tell us what you want. We're here to tell you what we're going to do. That's not what our government's here for. It's here to represent the people and let the city go in the direction that the citizens want, not just personal agendas of our council members.
And everyone probably knows that you were the fire chief here in the city, and the city council, where you're actually running to be a part of, elected to let you go. And you are currently suing the city because of that decision. Do you think that will hinder you working with those that are currently on the city council?
It may hinder them. I know there's been several people they're well, how does that work? At the end of the day, I felt my rights were violated. I felt I did not get fair and impartial treatment in the council chambers. And so, I'm going to hold them accountable for violating the rights of the citizens of this community.
And what do you believe your previous experience and positions here at the city will benefit you if you win the election in November?
Yeah, working within the government, I know a lot of the ins and outs of the city and the city government, city administration, and how that operates. That in itself is more than an experience, 20 years worth just here in the city of Monroe alone. I do own companies. We've done business with the federal government, state government, county governments, municipal governments throughout the state. So I'm very familiar with the inner workings of the government and how things tick and how things work.
And tell us what you believe the three biggest problems are here facing the Monroe.
Going in, Monroe is a great town. I love the way everything is about Monroe, and the citizens do too. But when we look at things, how we can improve, the biggest thing that I look at is where are we going from here? It may not seem like a big problem, but it really is. We look west towards Gwinnett County, towards Lawrenceville, towards places like that, and we see where they are, and we know that's the direction with the growth and influx of people coming into this community that we're going to go. And at the end of the day, how are we going to get there, and how are we going to keep those things from happening? So with that, my strategy for that would be is having an overall strategic plan for the city. There's a lot of people talk about plans. We have economic plans. We have all these small plans. But when you talk about an overall economic plan for the city, overall strategic plan for the city, what we're talking about is encompassing everything within that, not just the economy and things of that nature, but bringing in the department heads, bringing in our elected leaders, bringing in our citizens, bringing in the elected officials from the county, and identifying where we are and where we want to go, and how are we going to get there. Those are the key points that I think that the city is missing. If you don't have a good plan of where you're going, then it's just a haphazard mess on how you're going to get there. The second thing that I think is a key problem in the city is a basic standard of living. This is something that's already on the books. It's already parts of state laws and things of that nature. And basically what we're talking about here is, we have citizens within this community that the homes they're living in are below acceptable living standards. 65% of our homes are renters. They're not owner occupied. They're renting these homes, and some of them in absolutely deplorable condition. And when we talk about minimum standards, we're not talking about all these luxuries. We're talking about the bare minimum. The hot and cold water needs to work. They need to be able to take a shower. They need to be able to flush the toilet. The heating system in the house needs to work. These are the basic things that should just be naturally occurring within our community that isn't. This is pretty widespread. I've been through this community in the last 20 years. I've been in these homes, and I've seen the conditions some of these people are having to live with, and it's just deplorable. It shouldn't be that bad. And they shouldn't have to worry about reaching out to their landlord to get these things fixed, and reaching out to their landlord and saying, hey, I just want to be able to flush my toilet without having to worry about getting evicted. And so these are the type of things that I think the city should take a hard look at, especially knowing that it affects so much of the population. Again, we're talking 65% of the residential homes are this way. So that's a lot of our population that could be, and some are living in this condition. And so it should be a strong force that I think the city should take a stand on to keep this from happening within our community. The last thing I feel that needs to be addressed within our community is impact fees. The citizens are having to take on a lot of the burden, the tax burden of getting the city going in the right direction. We have all this new growth going in, but a lot of these services that are needed are in demand, sometimes even before these facilities open up. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about large commercial operations or large new developments and subdivisions. The impacts are immediate, whether we're talking about solid waste, whether we're talking about the impact of the heavy trucks driving up and down our roads. New street lights need to be put in, new stop signs need to be put up. All these things are having immediate impacts. Accidents occur during the construction process. Now you're taxing your fire and emergency services. We worry about theft on these job sites, so now there's more taxing on your law enforcement. These things are just piling in, and it could be a year or more before the city starts to recover this on tax revenue. And so I definitely see a need to have impacts fees brought in. It's not that much for these developments. It's not that much of an additional cost. And at the end of the day, they're just paying their fair share, and they should.
And what do you believe you're the best candidate for this position?
I work well with other people. I work well, with people within the community. I help out. I volunteer a lot in the community, and I think that's what we need to see more of, and that's what I want to do. It gets kind of old seeing all the photo ops, all the politicians show up, they take all their pictures, and 30 minutes later they're gone, and 2 weeks, 2 months later, you never even heard from them again. And that just gets old. If you're going to be a leader, well, lead. Be there. Dedicate yourself to what you're going to believe in, and then follow through with it. I sometimes question, whether they're after, helping other people or just their own agendas at the end of the day. And it's just very troublesome.
And if by chance you don't win the bid in November, do you still plan to be a part of the community?
Absolutely. I'm I'm well vested here. I love Monroe. I've been here for years. I volunteer. I work with Fish. I work with these other organizations that I'm a part of, and they all help and do great things within this community. And so that's not going to go away. I've been a part of that for years, and I'm not going to stop that anytime soon for anybody.
All right, and that's all the questions I have for you, Bill. Do you have anything you want to add that I didn't touch on?
That's about it. I really love Monroe. I think I can make a big difference. I would love to represent the people within District 8. I think I would do a great job representing those people, and I really question whether or not my counterpart has actually done that in the last 3.5 years. And that's the real question the citizens need to ask. If you felt well represented, okay. But if not, I would love to represent you.